Good afternoon. Let's get right down to business here. We're doing it live and doing more at 4. Weekday afternoons, we get right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro. And just before the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5, it's Mottek On Money, live on the air on 790 KABC, streaming live online worldwide at KABC.com, and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, KABC.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Mixed finish to the trading day on Wall Street today, with stocks finishing mostly higher again ahead of tonight's big debate between the presidential candidates, Republican former President Donald Trump and Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ scoring back-to-back gains, but the Dow pulling back today ahead of the release we'll be getting tomorrow on inflation. The August Consumer Price Index report will be coming out first thing tomorrow morning. Mixed finish today with the Dow down 93 points. The S&P 500 ending 24 points higher. The NASDAQ managed to extend yesterday's gain by moving up 141 points. This is a day after the Dow rallied nearly 500 points, and the NASDAQ gained nearly 200 yesterday to start the new week off, coming off the worst week of the year for stocks. There'll be plenty to watch for investors tonight in the what will be the first and possibly only presidential debate ahead of the November election. We'll, of course, be comparing tax policies between the two candidates. Crypto participants will also be tuning in on how the candidates will handle the impact of Bitcoin and other digital assets. Vice President Harris and former President Trump set to debate for the first time this evening, and possibly cryptos will be coming up. Whether Trump or Harris wins the election, the next administration will have to deal with cryptos, and, of course, the crypto crowd very much tuned in on what's being said about that. Sony today showing off its PlayStation 5 Pro console to the world as a way to offer gamers a richer gameplay experience and better graphics compared to the basic model. $700, though. Many gamers taking the social media today to talk about the high cost of the new PlayStation. Looks like the VIX index pulled back today by 2%. The volatility index, the Wall Street Fear Index, has been taking the spotlight lately, given the wide swings we've seen in the market. The price of oil hovering just above $66 a barrel today, and gold still hovering near its all-time high right now at $2,545 and change. Bitcoin, by the way, is down about 300 now at 57,660. It has also been bouncing around quite a bit. Big news at the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, the top-rated organization helping the homeless in Los Angeles. They've just announced the new Just Help One campaign to raise awareness of the great work of the Union Rescue Mission and the homeless crisis here in Los Angeles, with the numbers still at or near record highs. The new campaign coming ahead of the Over the Edge fundraiser at the end of this month, where supporters of URM will be rappelling over the edge of the top of the Universal Hilton Hotel on September 27th. Guess who else is doing it? Yours truly. And you'll be hearing more about that as we get closer to that big event. The other big news today, Union Rescue Mission has announced a new CEO. Mark Hood is the new CEO at Union Rescue Mission. He has an amazing business background and a longtime supporter of Union Rescue Mission. Mark Hood will be joining me live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now, let's bring Gabriel Wisdom, money manager and co-founder of American Money Management, based here in Southern California, also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. There's so much to cover. I could start with the debate. I could start with the CPI coming out tomorrow, or just the markets in general. Your call. All
right. Well, of course, the spotlight at the moment focused on the debate tonight and what investors will be watching for and listening for. Why don't you size that up for us, first of all?
Well, that's going to be quite a show. I think the fact remains that we all blame or we credit the president or the current administration for whatever happens during their watch. And the markets that drive the economy have little to do with what the president said actually decide. There's only a marginal effect if history's any guide. But I know tonight we're going to hear a lot about inflation, because growth under President Biden has been stronger than it was under Obama, and even President Trump, especially President Trump's COVID situation was pretty difficult. But Biden's growth has been a little stronger, but higher inflation and high interest rates have more than offset those growth stats in voters' minds clearly. So we're going to hear a lot about inflation, I think. We're going to hear good deal about gas prices. Under Trump's 4 years, gas prices were very, very low, but we came out of the Great Recession, and there was also a difficult time for energy companies. Energy stocks were the worst performing sector during the Trump presidency. So we all benefited by, paying less for gas. I think that's going to come up. And finally, cryptocurrency. Crypto companies account for nearly half of the corporate money that's been contributed to this year's races. So that's going to be very interesting, Frank.
Very much so. We're on the air live with Gabriel Wisdom, money manager and co-founder of American Money Management, based here in Southern California. Certainly on the inflation story, that's going to be a big part, I think, of the debate tonight when they talk about the economy, with inflation running at a 40-year high under this administration, and prices well above where they were just in recent years, a dramatic rise in prices. So that's something that's going to be, I think, focused on today. And then officially, we'll be getting the Consumer Price Index ahead of the opening bell tomorrow morning. What do you think the latest reading will be? And, of course, the Fed watches that reading very, very closely. We got the jobs report last Friday, and now we'll get this big report on inflation. Once you take all of that in for us, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow, and what do you think the Fed's next move will be?
Well, that's going to be really interesting because next week, September 18th, will be the beginning of the Federal Reserve's easing cycle, where they're expected widely to, reduce interest rates. Federal Governor Waller said just the other day that the labor market is moderating rather than deteriorating. We heard from New York Fed President John Williams. He said last Friday that the increase in unemployment has occurred in the context of a strong increase in the labor supply rather than from elevated layoffs, which you normally see in a recession. So if I had to guess, I'd say the CPI is going to show a reasonably strong economy. Now, that being said, Bob Dole, who's an investment professional out of New York, who's been with a number of firms, he's now with a smaller firm, but he comes up with his 10 predictions list every year. And one of them is that regardless of what the Federal Reserve does now late in the labor cycle, if past cycles are any indication, we're going to have a recession. Over the past 80 years, there's been no cases in which the Fed avoided a recession once they started reducing interest rates late in the cycle like they're doing now. So, again, very interesting.
Turning to the Magnificent Seven, Apple has been in the spotlight with that iPhone 16 announcement this week, and we see the stock down for the second day in a row today. NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, has taken a haircut recently, although we did see a rebound there of $1.63 at 108 and change. What about these Magnificent Seven names, and especially NVIDIA and Apple at this point?
These are great companies, and the fact is that when market forces push an entire index down, like they have for semiconductors, this has happened for the Magnificent Seven stocks, numbers of tech stocks have been hit pretty hard. So long as the underlying business is strong, that presents a good buying opportunity if history is any guide. Now, if we want to figure out what really is causing the sell-off in the Magnificent Seven stocks, and even NVIDIA, we look at what's called the carry trade. This is unwinding. A lot of Wall Street firms that trade a lot were borrowing in yen at near zero interest rates to buy, among other things, the Magnificent Seven stocks and semiconductor stocks. Now the Fed is reducing interest rates. That's pretty clear. But the Bank of Japan Fed has reiterated that Japan will continue to raise interest rates, and so they're unwinding these big positions in those seven companies in the semiconductors. I think it's going to be a choppy market until after November.
A lot of wild cards, certainly, and we've seen a pickup in volatility. We are, after all, coming off the worst week of the year last week, where we saw triple-digit drops almost every single day, and certainly that volatility index, the VIX index, is back in the spotlight, pulling back slightly today. But would you be betting on more volatility between certainly now and November?
I think so, Frank, because of the uncertainty over the election that's coming up. The S&P 500 lost over 4% last week, and there was a 13+% drop in the S&P 500 semiconductor stock price index. NVIDIA lost almost 14% last week. That certainly raised questions about the usefulness and the future of artificial intelligence, but that's volatility, and it's normal. Markets do fluctuate, especially in the midst of uncertainty, and we're going to know a whole lot more after November.
We're watching the situation unfold in the Middle East, which certainly will be a topic of debate tonight with the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas following the terror attack on Israel back on October 7th and Iran's threats to attack Israel. Interestingly, oil has come down rather significantly to low points of the year, down to around 66 and change. Today we had the CEO of Chevron speak at the World Affairs Council in downtown Los Angeles. It was quite an event there with L.A. business leaders gathering to hear Mike Wirth, the CEO of Chevron, which is about to move out of California, by the way, moving out their headquarters anyway to Houston. But, of course, they'll still maintain a large presence. CRC Chevron shares down a couple of dollars to $138 and change. What about the price of oil here and the big oil names now?
Yeah, I think it's temporary. The forecast longer range into next year for oil is something in the low $80 range. OPEC is already cutting back, which is what OPEC does when oil prices go down. They create a squeeze in supply, and that pushes up the price. Also, this conversion over to all things electric is going to take a very long time. Even electric utilities need natural gas and oil in order to run most of the operations. So I think it's interesting that oil companies have been buying back their own stock at a record that we've never seen, at a pace we've never seen, and it's benefiting shareholders. Like you mentioned, Chevron sold off a little bit. The 52-week highs are firmly in place for all the major oil companies.
And certainly energy policy, I have a feeling, will also be discussed in that presidential debate tonight. And certainly there seems to be a big difference in approaches between the two candidates on that.
I don't think there's any question about it. And a lot of it comes down to regulation. During the President Trump term, there was a move toward deregulation. Of course, the deregulation was widely blamed for the bank, especially the regional bank crisis, a lack of oversight. I don't think that really is fair to blame a deregulation. The Biden-Harris camp has been talking about more regulation and stricter policies with regard to oil and gas. And so I know we're going to hear a great deal about it because it affects everybody.
All right. And we're watching the price of gold still hover near its all-time high. Curiously, just as we're told, inflation is supposedly coming down. Gold hitting record highs recently and still trading above $2,500 an ounce here. What about gold and silver for that matter?
It's considered a defensive alternative to any kind of currency. In addition to gold, it's been holding up. The utility sector has also been performing well. It's just less susceptible to economic downturns, and that's true of gold as well. Central banks, including our own, have been accumulating gold. If you're looking for something that they're not making anymore, it certainly would be gold, even silver.
All right. We talked to the biggest fans of crypto here, as well as the harshest critics. I know you follow the crypto action, certainly, as we all do. Bitcoin down about 300 now, above 57,600 or so at the moment at last check. What are your thoughts about crypto here?
Frank, I agree that there are a lot of bad actors out there, and today in the Wall Street Journal, Tether came under attack. This is the stable coin, and it was taking a pretty good beating here earlier. But Wall Street Journal said Tether is undermining America's fight against arms dealers, sanctions busters, and scammers. that it's aiding Russian scofflaws, they call them. They sanction Venezuelan firms, terrorists like Hamas. But the fact is that bad actors have always used the U.S. dollar, cash. That's long been the favorite of criminals everywhere. Digital transactions are easily traced, and I would say that enforcement agencies around the world are getting better at doing just that. So I think we're going to hear about crypto tonight during the debate, and I think we're going to hear about crypto and blockchain for probably the rest of our lives.
Absolutely right. Well, that's an excellent point. You're right. They keep talking about crypto involved in criminal activity, which we're told is extremely traceable, whereas cash, of course, is still king probably in the criminal world. At this point, Gabriel Wisdom, let me ask you the big question here at this critical moment. Any specific places where you're putting money now and or taking it off the table?
You know, Frank, any sell-off in oil and gas and the legacy energy area, I think is an opportunity to accumulate. These companies are buying back their own shares, which generally boosts the earnings and makes the stock more attractive. XLU is the equity exchange-traded fund that has most of the big oil companies. I like XLU on a sell-off. I like the utilities on a sell-off because of this move toward artificial intelligence, automation, all things electric. That's the utilities sandbox. And finally, the number of available stocks has shrunk some 40% over the last few years. For example, the Wilshire 5000, which represented 5,000 public stocks, is down to around 3,400 stocks now because companies are going private. There's mergers and acquisitions activity. So I'd say it's a good time to own the entire market and just hang on for the long term.
Terrific. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon. That's Gabriel Wisdom, money manager and co-founder of American Money Management, based here in Southern California, also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, thank you very much, and we wish you a great rest of the evening.
You too, Frank. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and let's get right out to the freeways now here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Good afternoon. We are doing it live. Mixed finish to the trading day on Wall Street today. Stocks finishing mostly higher again ahead of tonight's big debate between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. You'll be able to hear that right here on 790 KBC right after Randy Wang's News Blitz in the 5 o'clock hour. The debate begins at 6 p.m. Of course, investors will be tuned in to what's being said about the economy, the markets, inflation, crypto, and the whole works. Today, the Dow pulled back 93 points, settling at 40,737. The S&P 500 of 24 at 5,495. And the NASDAQ gained 141, extending yesterday's impressive gain, 17,026 at the close. The yield in the 10-year note at 3.71%. We started this week with a pretty decent rally and some pretty good follow-through today, except for the blue chips. GM, by the way, closed down about 5%, down more than $2 at 44 and change. Among the winners today, Oracle shares up 11% and Broadcom stock up 5.2%. Apple down for the second day in a row following the iPhone 16 rollout. Apple down nearly $1 at 220 and change. The Magnificent One, NVIDIA, bouncing around quite a bit lately, moving higher today, up $1.63 at 108.10. Taking a look at the price of gold, moving higher by about $3 now, $2,545.80 an ounce. Silver is hovering just above $28, actually up 13 cents at $28.74 an ounce now. And the price of oil has hit low points of the year recently, right now up 58 cents at $66.33 a barrel. Taking a look at the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin down about 300 at 57,660. Ethereum is moving a bit higher now. Let's take a look here. And Doge at the moment, I can tell you, is at 10 cents. Let's see if we can bring up good old Ethereum. A lot of folks in the audience do track that as well. And Ethereum at the moment is up $11 at $2,389. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Big news at the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, the top-rated organization helping the homeless in L.A. They've just announced the new Just Help One campaign to raise awareness of the tremendous work of the Union Rescue Mission and the homeless crisis in Los Angeles, with the numbers still at or near record highs. The new campaign comes ahead of the Over the Edge fundraiser at the end of this month, where supporters of URM will rappel over the edge of the top of the Universal Hilton Hotel on September 27th. Yep, you heard me. You'll be hearing more about that as we head closer to that big event. The other big news today, Union Rescue Mission has just announced a new CEO. Mark Hood succeeds interim CEO Jeff Hudson and the Reverend Andy Bales, who ministered to the homeless at URM for 2 decades before going back to Iowa, his hometown, Des Moines, back in December of last year. Mark Hood bringing a clear understanding of the central role of evangelism and innovative business experience needed to lead the mission's strategic development. I'm elated to welcome Mark Hood for his first interview live on the air here on 790 KABC. Mark Hood, congratulations to you, sir, and welcome aboard here.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm excited to be a part of the mission and excited to be serving our community down here in downtown L.A.
Well, Godspeed in your important work, and right off the bat, tell us about your vision for the Union Rescue Mission.
Well, of course, really to continue what we've always done, but to expand that even further. I mean, as you said, the homeless issue in Los Angeles County is very big. But the message we want to get out to people is sometimes when a problem is really big, we get discouraged. We think we're not making a difference, but the reality is we absolutely are making a difference, one life at a time. And I attended a graduation on Saturday where 38 men that graduated from our programs down here were testament to those changed lives. So the vision for us is to continue life transformation. We want to do more than get people off the streets. We want to transform their lives back into society. Introduce them to a loving Savior, and get them back onto the road to recovery.
That's wonderful. And you have an amazing business background and have been a longtime supporter of Union Rescue Mission before attaining this position, right? Tell us about how you've supported Union Rescue Mission as so many businesses, individuals, and churches do so here in the Los Angeles area.
Absolutely. I was blessed with a 40-year career at a wonderful company called PPG. I was in their aerospace division, and it's while I was serving as one of their business leaders in our Southern California area that I was introduced to Hope Gardens. We actually were looking at Hope Gardens as a community outreach project for our organization in Sylmar, California, and it just turned into a relationship to where myself and others within PPG just partnered with that organization to do a lot of activities, a lot of community outreach. But for me, it turned into a personal life transformation. When just seeing what Union Rescue Mission, Hope Gardens was doing in the lives of people, and actually being a part of that transformation, seeing people go from homelessness to life recovery, to heart recovery, to back into employment, and getting their families reunited. It's something I knew that I wanted to be a part of, and so I retired from PPG to join this beautiful mission because it's something that I think really is transforming lives, and it is something that certainly is near and dear to my heart.
On the air live with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. And it should be noted, Union Rescue Mission includes the main facility in downtown Los Angeles on Skid Row, Hope Gardens in Sylmar, the beautiful oasis for homeless women and children, as well as seniors there, and, of course, Angela's House in South Los Angeles. So this is a tremendous organization with a lot of outreach, certainly, and I know you're going to be establishing partnerships, especially you're speaking to the business community here right now here on Mottek On Money, looking to reach out to the business world, especially. What is your message to the business folks who can do a lot to help Union Rescue Mission?
Well, what I would say is the relationship that my organization, PPG, had with Union Rescue Mission was definitely a two-way relationship. I know that we received as much out of that relationship as URM or Hope Gardens ever did. And what we're going to be asking the businesses in the community to do is come alongside us, partner with us in our mission to not just get people off the street, but provide a path back towards employment and provide a path back towards training and true recovery. And I can assure you from years of experience that any organization that comes alongside us, them and their team will receive as much of a blessing out of this as our team will. It truly, the transformation goes two ways. It changes hearts on both sides of the equation. So really looking forward to partnering with more businesses in the community to do what we do in changing lives each and every day.
That's wonderful. And URM's Vice President of Philanthropy, Richard Newcomb, has kept us very well informed and notes that URM has the highest possible rating from Charity Navigator, with, I believe, 86 cents of every dollar going to help the homeless, which is much better than many of the other organizations out there, and certainly with a lot of scrutiny focused on how money is being spent, especially by the government at this point on the homeless crisis. That is certainly something to be very, very proud of. You reminded me, we've all been inspired, and I'm sure you must have interacted with him over the years, the late, great Scott Minerd, a giant in the financial world. He was a top global investment manager who unfortunately departed nearly 2 years ago, passed away. He was URM's biggest supporter, and he told us here on the air that as an investor, he looked at return on investment and felt very strongly that Union Rescue Mission offered the very best return on investment when it comes to meeting the challenges of homelessness in Los Angeles. And we certainly honor his memory and encourage others to follow in his footsteps.
Oh, yeah, that's so well said, Frank. And you know, what Scott said about return on investment is certainly a true statement. Union Rescue Mission for years has been such good stewards of the money that they've received, making sure that 86 cents of every single dollar contributed is poured back into the life transformation and the emergency services of the people in the community we serve. So it truly is not only money invested well to make sure that it's going to the people that need it the most, but the return on investment is also realized in seeing that, you know, Union Rescue Mission has a vision for not only getting people off the streets, but bringing them back into communities and bringing them back into the world in a powerful way. So that the return on investment is more than financial.
And, of course, because Union Rescue Mission is privately funded, does not get government money for operating expenses because it does not permit drug and alcohol use on the premises, which is a subject we can talk about for quite some time. But the fact is, you're certainly looking at creative ways to raise money these days. And one effort that we're all getting behind on here at 790 KBC is the Over the Edge event coming up at the end of this month at the Universal Hilton. It's a big fundraiser at September 27th and 28th, and folks will be hearing more about that here and seeing it on billboards and so forth as part of the new Just Help One campaign. Tell us about the announcement of the new campaign and the big event coming up.
Well, the big event I am so excited about. The Union Rescue Mission has had this event for several years. I've always known about it, but I've never gone off the edge. We actually are going to rappel off the 25th floor of the Hilton at Universal City. So very exciting event, and it's a fundraiser to bring awareness to what we do, and it is also the launch of our Just Help One campaign. And again, when you think about the fact that there's 70,000 homeless people in Los Angeles County and some degree of homelessness, sometimes it seems overwhelming. It feels like you're boiling the ocean. And that's the reason we want to break it down to, we may not can help 70,000 people at the same time, but if each one of us decided we wanted to help one, we can. One child, one mother with a child, one family. That's where the focus needs to be, because each life helped, each life transformed truly does make a difference, and it's what we're put here to do. So the Over the Edge campaign, we would love to see people there. We'd love to you to partner with us in that as a sponsor and come over the edge of the building with us. I will certainly be going over the edge. Frank, I think you're going to be going over the edge as well,
yes,
right?
That's right. I pledge to do it and encourage all the business folks to get groups together. It's a great team-building exercise, certainly, and we want to encourage businesses, church groups, or any groups or individuals to participate. go to justhelpone.org, and you'll be able to get information about participating in this really exciting campaign to mobilize everyone here in Los Angeles to support Union Rescue Mission and to Just Help One, as well as going over the edge, and that is over the edge of the Universal Hilton Hotel. I'll be doing it, and hopefully join hands with you and the rest of the group there to make this a tremendous success.
You know, Frank, you said something that I think we need to highlight for the business people out there. When I was a business leader, I had small teams, large teams, but over the years, to build team building, to build confidence, to build leadership, I took those teams on events like scuba diving and caving and zip lining. And on top of this being a great a time to raise money for a very serious issue within our community, it's also an opportunity for you to do something with your team as leaders that they will remember the rest of their lives as a team building event. So please take advantage of this. It truly would be a special moment for you and your team.
Mark Hood, thank you very much for doing your first conversation as CEO of Union Rescue Mission, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Godspeed to you and everyone there, and look forward to seeing you at the big event at the end of the month.
Thank you so much.
And right out to the freeways we go now on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. The economy expected to be a big topic of conversation tonight in the presidential debate. You'll hear that debate, by the way, live here at 6 p.m. here on 790 KBC, right after 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. Randy Wang, by the way, will also be participating in the Over the Edge event benefiting Union Rescue Mission. So you'll be hearing a lot about that as we get closer to the big day, that big weekend, September 27th and 28th. So Randy Wang, I believe, is going to be going over the edge too. So we want to support Randy's efforts as well as yours truly. Yep, you can get more information about that at urm.org or justhelp1.org. That's the name of the new campaign they just rolled out. Well, in the meantime, we're watching what's happening with the credit cards very closely. Chase is ending its buy now, pay later. Chase Bank recently announced that it's banning the use of credit cards to pay off third-party buy now, pay later loans. This as credit card interest rates are still hovering at or near all-time highs. Following all of this very closely is Ted Rossman, senior industry analyst at Bankrate.com, who specializes in credit cards, credit scores, and other personal finance topics. Ted, thank you very much for coming to the line, and tell us what we need to know about this recent Chase announcement, first of all.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, basically what Chase is doing here, first and foremost, I would say, is guarding their own turf because they have their own buy now, pay later solution, which they recently rebranded as Chase Pay Over Time. It used to be called My Chase Plan, but it's basically a way for Chase credit card holders to use their card and then later on opt into an installment plan that operates very much like buy now, pay later lenders, companies like Affirm and Afterpay. So maybe you say it's 3 months or 6 months or a year and you know exactly how much you owe. And technically there's not interest, but there's a plan fee that for all intents and purposes kind of operates like interest, but it's less than the usual credit card. Maybe it's 7% instead of 20 or something like that. So really I view Chase's ban on using their cards for things like Affirm mostly as a way to promote their own solution, although Capital One made a similar move a few years ago, and for them it was more about they didn't want to be in the second lien position. They didn't want people paying off debt with more debt. So that seems like a prudent move as well.
Very interesting. Well, thanks for highlighting that. Any other trends you're seeing here, especially as it relates to credit card interest rates? It's widely expected that the Fed will be cutting rates, the benchmark Fed funds rate next week for the first time in quite some time. In the meantime, we've seen credit card interest rates at record highs. What do you think is going to happen next week, and what impact will it have on credit card interest rates?
We're definitely going to get a cut next week. It seems like probably a quarter point, although there's still some thought that it might be a half a point. Honestly, in the credit card market, it's going to make little difference because the average credit card rate is about 20.8%. It's very close to a record high. That tends to mirror what the Fed is doing. So if that goes down a quarter point or a half point, or, I mean, honestly, even if that went down a couple of points over the next couple of years, that's still high-cost debt. Rate cuts will make a bigger difference to the mortgage market. We've already seen the average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage come down from about 8% to about 6.5%. It's believed that that could maybe fall another point or so over the next year. That could make a big difference to prospective home buyers and refinancers.
That's certainly an important point. We have seen mortgage rates come down as the yield in the 10-year note, which I quote every day here, has come down. In fact, I believe it's still hovering at the low point of the year here now, right, at 3.65% at last check.
And those longer-term treasuries and, in turn, mortgage rates, those are investors reading the tea leaves of the longer-term trend, whereas something like credit card rates are pegged more to short-term rates. So, the prime rate plus the issuer's profit margin, that tends to be how credit card rates are set. So the fact that short-term rates are high and also the margin is high on credit cards because it's unsecured debt, that's why your typical credit card rate is 3, 4, 5x what a lot of people are paying on things like mortgages and student loans and car loans.
All right, as we head, believe it or not, toward the holiday season, is this a buy now, pay later type of arrangement catching on, or layaway? Remember, that was a big thing, and then when the economy was booming, we didn't see too many layaway plans, but now they seem to be coming back. Any other trends you're picking up from the consumer standpoint?
Buy now, pay later is a new twist on that old layaway concept. That's definitely right. It really surged last holiday season. Adobe says usage was up 40% on Black Friday and Cyber Monday last year. It was up about 14% for the whole season. I believe it's going to continue to grow robustly. It's still small compared to credit cards. The buy now, pay later market is only about 3% the size of the credit card market, but it is growing rapidly, and it's especially popular among young people, people who maybe don't have a credit score or don't have great credit.
Ted, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us here on all those important issues. Ted Rossman, Senior Industry Analyst at Bankrate.com, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now, 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, followed by the big debate tonight. Live here, 790 KBC.
Welcome to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast, Season 5, Episode 4. This is Aqua.
The new episode opens with summer shenanigans at Crater Lake. What could go wrong?
Tom, was the lake super cold?
Yeah, that's a mountain lake when we do these underwater scenes and everything's crystal clear and everyone sees everything crystal clear. If any of you ever go underwater and open your eyes, nothing is crystal clear.
Nothing.
We have that slow motion underwater fight sequence. We can't see anything.
Good Lord.
Binge Seasons 1 through 4 of Talkville before Season 5 begins, wherever you listen.